We are now joined by Ken Gichinga, who is our resident analyst right here at BizChat Weekly. Ken Gichinga is an economist and the CEO of Mentoria, a research firm. Ken, good to have you on the show today again. What stood out for you in the president's speech?
Many thanks, Brian George. I think this was an excellent speech by the president. He offered a deep reflection of the past and an honest appraisal of the Kenyan economy today. And I think there has been a sense of soul-searching within the National Treasury, within the presidency, on where the Kenyan economy is. And I think they have shown that they can rise to the occasion. I was particularly impressed by the digitization of the lands project, the Ardhisasa, because, Brian George, you know that land is the largest factor of production. So the ability to be able to utilize it in a meaningful way is powerful. But also the stimulus package, 25 billion adding to the 56 billion offered last year, takes our total stimulus package to about 81 billion. It's still way below the 300 billion that I believe is necessary, but we'll take it because the economy needs to move forward, and it has been a time. But also some of the things around the CRB, these are things that we've talked about. They have affected the conduct of monetary policy and things on the kazi kwa vijana, really getting young people back to work, reducing unemployment. So I think this is a very encouraging message, and we really hope everything will be implemented as has been explained.
Biggest wins for Kenyans today is the lifting of the curfew. So let's just have a trail down of who are the biggest gainers in the curfew lifting.
Obviously, that was a big highlight for most Kenyans. The hospitality industry, I think, will be the biggest beneficiary. If you think of the hotels in Nairobi and particularly in Mombasa, which have been extremely hard hit. But, you know, every sector of the economy will benefit because when people meet and dine together, they discuss business deals, and these deals end up affecting every sector of the economy. So many aspects of the economy have been put on hold because of the curfew. Our research shows that most businesses have been operating at 60% of their capacity. So that's an economy operating on one engine. So expect the hospitality industry to be the primary beneficiary, but everybody else, transport, everything else will benefit.
Well, the president was heavy on the agricultural reforms, and in the previous economic survey that was released earlier in the year, agriculture contributed about 48% of the country's, sort of GDP. The reforms that the president is coming up with right now, what impact are they going to have on the output of agriculture in the economy?
Well, actually, agriculture, according to the latest economic survey, contributed about 25% of GDP, which was much lower than last year when it was 33%. So there has been a big worry about the state of agriculture and where it's going. So I think this has been almost a way to inspire life into that sector. And he categorized it into livestock, into tea, into coffee, into areas such as dairy and rice. So for me, I think it's really a realization that agriculture is a resilient part of the economy, and it's an economy that can create tremendous opportunities, particularly for young people who have lost jobs during the COVID pandemic.
The other issue also is that he mentioned that no one will be listed in the CRB if you owe anything up to 5 million Kenya shillings. Should we now have a scientific metric of getting, of according or advancing loans to people?
Absolutely. There is a technique called risk-based pricing, which is where the industry is moving. But it's true that a lot of people have been listed by the CRB, maybe because there was an overdraft of 1,000 shillings, for example, and that really impacts on ability to access credit. And small business have a challenge with accessing credit. So I think this is going to be a major momentum, a major push for small business, and we do really hope that our banks can start implementing these as of tomorrow.
Ken, as we close this discussion, what did the president mention about taxes, maybe? I don't know.
Well, there was that idea particularly on fuel. he did mention that fuel pricings have been quite high and they need to be reviewed. And Brian George, you're well aware that the reason fuel prices are very high is because 50% of it goes to tax. So the order of reviewing a new fuel model before December 24th will necessarily mean that they have to look at the taxation of it, because it's the tax component that contributes up to the high cost. So I think the next 2 months there'll be a lot of heavy lifting at the Treasury to come up with a new model. And if we can bring down these taxes down and fuel prices down, businesses will really be spurred back to life.
Ken, just in 30 seconds, I was forgetting this particular question I wanted to ask you about. The president has issued a directive that 10,000 classrooms be constructed, albeit to, enable CBC and to just give more resources to the learners. He was categorical that Ministry of Education should contract local contractors. How can we make sure that this is adhered to? What monitoring schemes should be put on the ground to make sure that this is actually followed to the letter?
This has been a challenge in the past. If you look at the standard gauge railway, for example, there was what is called a gentleman's agreement that 60% of it would be done by the Chinese and 40% of it would be done by locals. But there was never a contractual agreement, and therefore that never happened. So I think for this to actually work, this needs to be put in a policy statement. In a sense, that becomes a contract. So if there is a policy contract, then it's easier to implement. And I think that's fantastic because it allows local producers to participate in construction, and more importantly, it allows cash circulation to remain within the local economy.
Amazing. Many thanks, Ken Gichinga, right there, CEO of Mentoria and Chief Economist. He's been speaking to us on, we've just been crossing the